Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my favorite movies of 2025. I am going to quickly apologize for not uploading anything in the recent months. I originally wanted to make reviews for films like Weapons or One Battle After Another, but I just never got around to it, and I kind of went on a rather awful anxiety and a bit of a depression spiral that is still kind of happening, so it's not really a good excuse, but it is why I haven't been active. I did go to a Linkin Park concert in September, which was absolutely incredible and definitely the highlight of my year. Stop yelling at me! It was a pretty short-term cure for my anxiety and depression that was going on, but I am going to try and be a little bit more consistent in the coming months and at least get something out at least once a month. 2025 was a fantastic year for movies on many fronts. There were a bunch of great big budget blockbuster films, a ton of smaller great indie movies, and even some more mid-budget kind of stuff that we really haven't seen the likes of in a while. That said, while 2024 had that one movie that I knew was definitively my favorite film with Dune Part 2, 2025 hasn't really been like that. My favorite films of this year have shifted around so much throughout the year that the list has constantly changed, and it looks drastically different from month to month. And to be honest, I'm still not entirely confident that I have a specific favorite of this year because we had just such a great and solid year for movies. As of writing this video, I have seen around 85 movies that released in 2025 and have been able to go to the movie theaters at least 45 times as well, which I believe is the most I've ever been in a single year. Now, as of recording this, I have not seen movies like Marty Supreme or Hamnet, which very well could end up on the list later on, but for now they will not be here because I have not seen them. But first up, I have quite a few honorable mentions. My first honorable mention is a small movie that was actually the last movie I saw in 2025, and that is a film called If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. This is basically like Uncut Gems, but the protagonist isn't actively making the worst decisions humanely possible. I felt really bad for the protagonist in this movie, and Rose Byrne gives maybe my favorite performance of the whole year. Avatar: Fire and Ash is yet another cinematic marvel from James Cameron. I do prefer The Way of Water quite a bit more, mainly because Fire and Ash doesn't really feel like it has an ending, and while basically being the same runtime, it feels a bit leaner than the third film does. That said, I love the theatrical experience of Fire and Ash, and the film is just jaw-dropping to look at, while being equally exciting. Zootopia 2 is one of my biggest surprises of the year. I've always loved the first quite a bit, and Disney hasn't really had the greatest track record as of recent years regarding their animated films, so this felt like a really true return to form by keeping the heart at the center of it, while also being very clever, really funny, and exciting. Sorry Baby is one of the more underrated and overlooked films of the year. It's a quiet and contemplative film that I found deeply moving. It takes a unique perspective and distinct vision to make a film like this, where it weaves between extremely dark subject material while also being really funny. It's a very impressive directorial debut from Eva Victor. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein is an all-around stunning movie, gorgeous cinematography and set design, incredible performance, and surprisingly moving. Jacob Elordi as the monster was easily the standout of this movie for me. The Long Walk is a simple, soul-crushing, and highly effective movie that reflects on life, friendship, and the human spirit. There were multiple instances in the theater where I was definitely crying, and if I were a part of the Academy, I would nominate David Johnson for Best Supporting Actor. And my final honorable mention is Zach Cregger's Weapons. This was such a fun theater experience and such a unique horror movie. It moves between being genuinely unnerving and utterly hilarious in an instant without ever feeling like it has tonal whiplash, except for maybe one or two moments, for me at least. There's some really good jump scares here, and the film was super engaging at all times. With all of my honorable mentions done, let's move on to my actual top 10 list. In 10th place is a criminally underseen and underrated indie rom-com from A24, and that is Eternity. Yes, if you've seen any of my other videos within the last year, you know I'm a big Wanda fan, which also makes me a big Elizabeth Olsen fan by proxy, so am I a bit biased here? Maybe, but I also thought this movie was all around excellent. Any movie that can get me this emotionally attached and engaged with the material is worthy of my praise. It has a very simple yet effective premise where this woman is stuck between her long-deceased ex-husband and her long-term husband for 40 years in the afterlife, and needs to choose which one to spend eternity with. It touches on the nature of love and how we see each other as people. Olsen's character, Joan, has remained attached with a memory of her first husband for decades after he died, but didn't quite know everything about him, while she was married to Larry for 40 plus years and knows every single thing about him and loves him in a different way that just can't be explained in a single sentence. I found this movie deeply moving, yet equally hilarious. It came at a point in time when I watched it, when I was deeply struggling with my mental health and just needed a movie like this to comfort me. Eternity is the film equivalent of a massive warm hug. It made me laugh, it made me cry, and it felt truly authentic to the human experience. Ideally, in my mind, Olsen gets some kind of awards buzz for this, but I don't see that happening, unfortunately. Highly recommend this movie. My ninth place film is the complete opposite of Eternity, and it is a film that I was looking forward to, but did not expect to have such a good time with, and that is Predator Badlands. I know this is a hot take, but Predator Badlands is easily my favorite Predator movie. Predator Badlands gave me one of my absolute favorite theatrical experiences of the year. I found this movie ridiculously entertaining from the very starting frame to the very last. It felt like I genuinely escaped from reality for an hour and 50 minutes for the first time in a long time. It's a film filled with so much creativity, whether it be in the inventiveness of the action sequences, or the unique and impressive environment, the booming score, or the equally impressive visuals. I was constantly impressed with this movie. Just a big dumb grin the entire time. It certainly has a simple story with a young predator seeking to prove himself and finding a bit of a found family along the way, but it does that without ever sacrificing the violence or the core of the Predator movies. Yeah, it's PG-13 and not R, but it's still pretty damn violent. Elle Fanning obviously steals the show for me with both of her characters, and there was just so many straight up cool moments in this movie that I couldn't help but giggle with pure glee at how just awesome it was. It was so much fun. The only thing that would make this movie more metal would be actual metal music. In eighth place is a film that surrounds a topic that I could not care less about, yet still is a movie that I completely adore, and that is F1. I do not care about Formula One racing, or really sports in general, and yet this movie has stayed with me throughout the year and is obviously one of my favorites because it's on this list. This is a classic, crowd-pleasing blockbuster movie with completely enthralling racing sequences. You can tell that this was made by the director of Top Gun Maverick because the racing scenes are so incredible. It is easily the best racing I've ever seen in a movie. And there's also a lot of racing in this movie. I think like at least 80 minutes of the movie are on the track, from what I read at least. It also helps that the characters are very likable and really fun to watch, and they're pretty easy to root for, so it becomes a very satisfying and crowd-pleasing experience. Hans Zimmer's score is also very solid. I wouldn't say it's one of his best, but it fits the film very well. And despite being a rather long movie at over 2.5 hours, it completely races by. See what I did there? It's just a film that I can see myself going to when I'm having a bad day or feeling really anxious to help calm me down and center myself again. And that is why it is my 8th favorite movie of the year. My 7th place was my most anticipated movie of the year, and that is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. This was the movie I struggled with placing on this list the most, because for a while it was my number one because I had such a great theater experience with it. Multiple times. I went to see it multiple times, of course, but I also haven't watched it since theaters, so I don't have a great place to compare it to these other movies that are coming up next that I have seen multiple times since theaters, but I feel fairly solid at placing it here for now. I know not everyone loved this movie, but I did. It has the two best action sequences of the entire year, and some of the best of all time with the submarine sequence and the plane sequences. And like I said, these two sequences alone gave me some of the best and most intense theater experiences all year. That said, the reason why I struggled so much with placing this film is that it is easily the most flawed of the Mission Impossible films since the third film. It is filled with a ton of exposition scenes in the first half, and is way more convoluted than it really needs to be, and there really should have been at least one more big action sequence rather than just the submarine and plane scenes, because one fight halfway through the movie and then the two big scenes is pretty light on action for a Mission Impossible movie. But there is a reason that I put it on the list anyway, and I found it to be still a very entertaining, intense, and overall very satisfying movie to watch, especially in theaters. I mean, say what you will about Tom Cruise as a person, because I know I certainly will. I hate just about everything he stands for in his personal life, but the man is genuinely insane for better and for worse when it comes to his dedication to making these movies feel real and making the audience entertained, because he is really underwater doing these things in that submarine and on these underwater sets, and he's really on those planes hanging around. It's ridiculous. Those sequences are so white-knuckled and intense and anxiety-inducing that it's worth getting through all of the exposition in the first half, which can be a bit tiring, admittedly. I still overall love this movie, and it is on the list after all, just lower than I would have initially put it after seeing it for the first time. My number 6 pick is a movie that had the most exhausting discourse throughout the year, and that is James Gunn's Superman. I did a review on this movie when it came out. You could go look at that for a bit of a more in-depth look at my thoughts. But I thought this was the perfect Superman movie in my book. It perfectly captures the ideals and symbolism of the character while also being a wildly entertaining and fun blockbuster. For me, this is easily my favorite depiction of Superman, the beacon of hope who is nearly indestructible and tries his best to do the right thing, but is also vulnerable, complex, and a relatable person. There's a particular speech that Superman gives at the end towards Lex Luthor that moves me every time I see the film. Speaking of Lex Luthor, Nicholas Hoult is easily the best Lex Luthor. In the movies, at least. I haven't really seen any of the shows like Smallville or Superman and Lois, if Lex Luthor's in that show. So I can't really comment on if he's better in those shows or not, but for the movies at least, I think this Lex Luthor is the best one. He is a petty hater who also feels justified in why he hates Superman so much, and also is a legitimate threat to Superman despite being just a normal human. This is a film that combines the big, epic, grand-scale action sequences from stuff like the Zack Snyder films, and also has the earnest optimism from the Christopher Reeve films. Yes, it has some of the James Gunn signature humor, but it never feels like it undercuts anything because it remains sincere and heartfelt throughout the entire film, like pretty much all of James Gunn's superhero movies at this point. Something that neither Man of Steel nor Batman v Superman had was great chemistry between Lois and Clark, and here they feel like they really are in the early stages of a relationship. Rachel Brosnahan is so good as Lois Lane in this movie. The fact that one of the most memorable scenes is simply 10 minutes of dialogue between Superman and Lane speaks volumes. I do wish the movie was a bit longer to showcase some more of the characters like Perry White and Hawkgirl, as well as a bit more breathing room with some of the reveals surrounding Jor-El, but it is a truly fantastic way to kick off the new DCU, and I cannot wait for Supergirl in June. In 5th place might surprise some people, and it might seem weird because I placed this movie above another movie that is higher in this list in a different video, but that is going to be The Fantastic Four: First Steps. The only reason I'm placing this lower on this list, even though it's number 5 of the year, I love this movie, is that the other films that are higher in this list just simply stuck with me emotionally a bit more in the long term. That said, The Fantastic Four: First Steps is truly fantastic. It nails the characters. I cannot wait to see more of Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben in the future. To me, that was the most important aspect of the film that it needed to get right, and Matt Shakman delivered. It also helps that the narrative and pacing of the film are stellar. It keeps itself very simple to leave room for the character dynamics to grow. And it keeps itself simple to allow Galactus to feel like a true threat, and the way that they showcase him throughout the film is really impressive. The Silver Surfer was also a very big highlight of the film for me, both with Julia Garner's performance and the visual effects for her. Just stellar work on all fronts. All of the sequences with her are some of the most memorable of the entire year. In particular, this film has one of the all-time greatest MCU sequences in general, when the team goes to space to visit Galactus. The whole 20-something minute sequence from when they blast off to space to when they address the public after arriving back at home is peak MCU. All of the visuals, the tension, and the performances are spectacular. This is also a film that induces genuine dread with the villain. Once Silver Surfer shows up, Galactus remains a looming threat throughout the background of the entire film, and it always keeps the tension very high. I love this movie, and I can't wait to see these characters again. My number 4 pick might also surprise people on why it might not be higher, and that is Sinners. Don't get me wrong, this movie is a masterpiece. It's just the next 3 movies maybe stuck with me a little bit more on an emotional level or kept me engaged in a way that the rest of this list didn't. But Sinners truly showcases why Ryan Coogler is one of the best directors working right now. He is a director that has a lot to say about social issues while also knowing how to make interesting and compelling stories. Just about everything about this film is practically perfect in my eyes. It has my favorite cinematography and original score of the entire year. Normally, I'm not a big fan of the ultra-wide 2:7:6 aspect ratio, but this movie utilizes it so well as its use of IMAX. The ultra-wide aspect ratio makes those big IMAX sequences pop even more because of the stark difference in image size. The fact that this movie is a vampire horror sort of genre blender, but none of that stuff even appears until the second act is remarkable. The first act is so good and so immersive that it makes you forget about the horror elements that are to come because the characters and world that it's building are simply that compelling. Michael B. Jordan is genuinely incredible in this movie as both of the twins. I really hope he gets an Oscar nomination for it. And then once the suspense and horror starts, it gets even better, because the movie makes you care about the characters so much in the first half that when Remick shows up to wreak havoc, it makes it even more intense. There are also some very unique sequences that theoretically should not work, but end up being some of the best and most memorable of the year, like that long take scene that showcases the different eras of music that were influenced by the blues, and the scene where Remick does a big Irish jig with his other vampires. Truly stellar work. This is one of the most memorable and interesting movies of 2025. In third place for me is Thunderbolts. After a bunch of reflection between this and the Fantastic Four, I've determined that I like Thunderbolts just a tad more. I adore Thunderbolts. I walked out of this movie on opening night for the first time feeling entirely fulfilled in a way that the MCU hasn't given me in a while, and I say that as someone who has loved a bunch of their recent stuff like Deadpool and Wolverine anyway. This movie is a complete package. It's filled with a bunch of great action sequences, it's got so many interesting and compelling characters who get their proper due throughout the movie. It feels like the MCU is finally moving in the proper direction with this movie, and I say that as someone who's been pleased with most of what they've been doing. This movie is the equivalent of a very productive therapy session. Thunderbolts is a movie about mental health. Whether it be depression or anxiety, taking care of your mental health is so important, guys. Go to therapy. If you need, take meds like I do. We need to realize as a society that these things should not be stigmatized. It's getting way better, but there are still some people that don't understand the importance of this. And to see such a high-profile movie from such a high-profile studio really showcase the importance of understanding this means so much to me. As a bit of an aside, this is why I love Linkin Park and their members so much. They are so open about mental health and supporting awareness of it. Honestly, one of their new songs, Up From the Bottom, would fit this movie so well that I kind of wish Marvel reached out to them to put this in the credits or something. That's a completely different tangent. I'm sorry, back to the movie. Thunderbolts is a movie that made me feel seen. Yelena's breakdown to Red Guardian is one of the best and most emotionally resonant moments of the entire year, and in the entire MCU. It's just a simple scene of excellent acting, and it sticks out so much more than just a random fight scene. And the fight scenes in this movie are great, don't get me wrong. Another scene where the team embraces Bob at the end is also one of the most emotionally shattering and impactful moments in the entire MCU. Yelena and Bob shot straight to the top of being some of my favorite MCU characters instantly after this movie. I loved Yelena in Black Widow and Hawkeye, but here she just excels and Florence Pugh is incredible. I love that the finale of this movie isn't the standard big CGI fight third act moment as well. Fantastic Four did that stuff really well with Galactus, but this was unique. It does have a big fight with Sentry and the team saving people from the Void's destruction, but ultimately it's a surreal journey into the minds of Yelena and Bob as the finale. I can't wait to see these characters again, especially Sentry. This movie has continuously stuck with me throughout the year, and that is why it is my third favorite movie of 2025. My second favorite movie of the year is from a series of movies that continues to deliver for me, and that is Wake Up Dead Man. This movie surpassed every single one of my expectations, and I'm so glad I got to see it in theaters. Knives Out is one of my favorite movies of all time, and definitely one of my favorite movies of the last 10 years or so, and I also loved Glass Onion, They're both so well written with great social satire on the upper class and societal issues, but where those two movies take a more humorous approach on how wealth affects people and how people act in society, this one takes a more significantly empathetic approach to how wealth affects individuals and how people can become trapped or radicalized in situations like the characters are put in here. And this one might just have the best writing of the three so far. I might prefer Knives Out just a bit more over Wake Up Dead Man because I've seen it way more times and I think it's a bit more fun. But Wake Up Dead Man is so strong and it has really stuck with me. It really emotionally resonated in a way that I did not expect. It is so good that Benoit Blanc doesn't even appear until 40 minutes into the movie, and by the time he shows up, I forgot he was going to even appear because the opening act and setup of the mystery is just that compelling. The approach that this movie takes on the modern state of Christianity is straight up brilliant in my opinion. It criticizes faith and the modern state of Christianity, but also emphasizes the importance of it and showcasing what true grace is meant to be. Quite frankly, I despise the modern state of Christianity in the United States. I don't even see it as really being Christian. It's just a way to justify people's own bigotries. It doesn't follow the teachings of Jesus or the Bible at all, and that's why I'm very conflicted on faith as a whole. But this movie really resonated with me on that fact. I'm still conflicted on how I feel overall about this topic in real life, but this movie I think handles this subject so well and with a lot of grace, pun fully intended. Father Judd is such a compelling character because he showcases what it truly means to be a real Christian, not weak in his faith or willing to budge, but empathetic, not bigoted, and follows the real teachings of Jesus and the Bible. But he's also a very flawed person, and he recognizes that he's a very flawed person, and because he recognizes that he's flawed, everyone else can be flawed, and he can help them regardless. Whereas Josh Brolin's character Monsignor Wicks is everything wrong with modern religion. Bigoted, self-indulgent, and far more focused on furthering his own self-interest while not caring about what faith is really meant to be. The commentary here is piercing and I think is necessary for today. Oh, and it's also a really great mystery movie that is incredibly well written and compelling to watch. The cast all does such a great job. The differences between Father Judd and Benoit Blanc as characters make their dynamics so interesting to watch, and that is why Wake Up Dead Man is my second favorite movie of the year. I think it's so well written on all fronts, it's entertaining, and it really sneaks up on you with the emotion of it. And my number one movie of 2025 was actually a movie I was not looking forward to at all because of my own weird feelings towards how other people treated Paul Thomas Anderson and his previous work, despite me not really seeing any of his movies other than one or two. And my number one is One Battle After Another. I can't explain, and I'm definitely wrong, but for some reason I thought Anderson's fans were insufferable despite me not really experiencing his movies myself. But more importantly, I thought the marketing for this movie was kind of awful. It didn't look interesting, the humor felt forced, and the trailers didn't really give a good sense of what this movie was. Boy was I wrong, because I sat there in the IMAX theater and was completely blown away by everything about this movie. Now, this isn't quite the knockout definitive no other movie can top this for the rest of the year for me kind of movie like I thought Dune Part 2 was in 2024, but it is fairly comfortably in my number one position for 2025. Like Wake Up Dead Man, One Battle After Another is piercing in its social commentary and also is just wildly entertaining. It does not hold back its views on modern society and politics while also being wildly entertaining and incredibly well made as a movie. I believe it was around the halfway point in this movie during the scene where Leo is desperately trying to remember the passphrase for his organization in a rather hilarious scene when I realized that I was watching something truly special. This movie seamlessly weaves between incredible tension, incredibly funny dialogue and witty dialogue, and its political satire as well. And it does it all without feeling overstuffed as a movie or feeling preachy to the audience. The first act of One Battle After Another is fast, intense, and it sets every moving piece of the movie up so well. It showcases while the French 75 are trying to make the world a better place, they're definitely going about it the wrong way and hurting people, while it also showcases the other side in Lockjaw's character, with him being a self-interested scumbag, with a truly special performance from Sean Penn, I might add. I can't say that I particularly like that dude as a person, but my god, his performance in this movie is unlike I've ever seen. I kind of hope he wins the Oscar for it. Lockjaw is simultaneously a hilariously pathetic loser, but also a legitimately intimidating and true threat to the primary characters. And fun fact, Leonardo DiCaprio's character and Lockjaw only have one interaction in the entire movie. I didn't even notice that the first time I saw it. And once the second act kicks off and gets into the main meat of the story, everything is already established so well with the characters and the world that it has set up. So it makes us really care about these people, so the tension can continuously skyrocket for the rest of the runtime and give us some of the best sequences of the whole year. The entire second act is just so intense and riveting that I felt like my heart just kept continuously sinking into my chest in the theater, and the third act has one of the most unique and inventive car chases I've ever seen. By the end, when Leo and his daughter reunite, it really feels satisfying because of how much intensity that both of their characters endure throughout the movie. I adored One Battle After Another. It is my favorite movie of the year, and it is my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie. Yes, even more than There Will Be Blood. My only regret is that I only saw this film in theaters once. As of now, Leo is my pick for Best Actor, but I also have not seen Marty Supreme yet with Timothée Chalamet, so that could change when I do see that film. So that is going to do it for my Best Movies of 2025 list. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, as well as your favorite movies of 2025. Please remember to subscribe and hit the like button. It's a great help to the channel, and have a great 2026. Okay, bye.
If it is to be said, so it is.